So will ESG be the silver bullet for the agriculture sector? So that's a question that we want to, go into. But within the agriculture sector, we acknowledge that the challenge to sustain life on an increasingly crowded planet of more than 7 billion people grows more complicated every day. By 2050, our planet will be home to more than 2 billion people, to another 2 billion people. So how will we feed them all? Not only there will be more people, but majority will have more money to spend on food, right? Agriculture remains one of the world's largest industry. It employs more than 1 billion people and generates over $1.3 trillion worth of food annually. However, agriculture accounts for over 70% of global freshwater use, 23% of total anthropogenic greenhouse gas emission, and it is increasingly rapidly declining our biodiversity. So the agriculture sector is having an impact slowly but surely. So for today, I'll turn to Arindam. Right, Arindam, the Rabobank is set to be the largest cooperative bank in the world that has a huge portfolio on food and agriculture. So within Rabobank's approach, it mentions advocating for transitioning towards a more sustainable way to feed the growing world population. I guess this is part of the bank's mantra. So there is an enormous outcome to gain, transforming the agriculture sector towards sustainable practices and averting deforestation, and yet be able to feed the people. So within your bank, in terms of differentiation of sustainable agriculture trends between what you see in Americas, in Europe, and us in Asia, what is the trend that we're seeing, and how do you as a bank support agriculture businesses going towards sustainability?
Thank you, Evie. Thanks, AVBN, for inviting me to be a member of this panel. So, Evie, a very interesting question. Now, the food and agri sector, as you said, is critical for our survival. At the same time, it's a very polluting sector. Now, the trends we see is Europe is going very, very green. If you look at all the financial institutions, if you look at all the equity funds, all the asset managers, they are demanding extremely green assets, including in the agriculture sector. Now, if you look at India, look at Asia, we have some of the giants here. We look at China, India, Southeast Asia. We have the largest number of consumers and the largest number of farmers in Asia. So it's extremely critical that Asia gets its act right. But having said that, in Asia, the social problem, the inclusive problem is still not solved, unlike in the Western part of the world. So we have to keep in mind the inclusiveness part of green agriculture, of climate agriculture, of sustainable agriculture, while we address the issues at the farmers level. Now, the critical part here is a lot of work is going on the mitigation side, but very little work is going on the adaptation side, which is more difficult, and it includes a lot of stakeholders. So we as a financial institution, what we do is, we do a sustainability check on each and every client, whether they're based in Asia or any other part of the world. And we only work with them if they and their supply chain is defined as sustainable as per our parameters and our policies. Second, we also have the mandate to onboard clients who are not front runners, but who have the ambition to become front runners. And that's where our knowledge and network comes in, that we can guide them, our clients, to become more sustainable. And that's over a period of time. Now, that's what we do. So we see the impact of climate on our balance sheet. It's very important from a risk management perspective, from a business development perspective. And the last point I would like to make is we also have niche facilities. For example, there's a $1 billion facility called Agri-3, which we have created with the Dutch government and UNEP and a few other entities. Now, that facility is to help banks across the world, including in Asia, to finance climate smart agriculture projects and programs, where we provide a risk mitigation facility and where we work with large retail banks across the world. We have done transactions in Brazil, in China, We are looking at transactions in the palm oil sector in Indonesia, Malaysia, and we are also looking at transactions in India. So, Evie, I'll stop here for the time.
Thank you, Arindra. Very insightful, and I think a very good opportunity for this region on the Agri-Tree Fund. So now I turn to John. As you are an ag funder for Asia, what are you trying to change in the sustainable agriculture landscape in this region? You know, what are your investors looking for?
I think maybe, excuse me, thanks, Ivy. Maybe just a point of clarification. I can't claim to be the ag funder in Asia. It's the name of the venture capital firm that I represent here. And just to sort of provide a bit of background, so we're an early stage venture capital firm, originally incorporated in the US and investing in agri-food tech since 2013. As recently as 2019, we established an office out here in Singapore, which is where I'm based. And the way that the role that we play in this broader ecosystem, as Arindam has made mention of, is really focusing on the early stage venture support, investment in the disruptive startups. And I guess the way that we see the importance in the role that we play is through the lens of innovation and technology, which is going to have that fundamental shift in the way that we are producing our food, to processing it and ultimately consuming it. Think of it in terms of everything from alternative protein boom that we've seen over the last few years. That segment of the market really didn't exist about 10 years ago, before the likes of Impossible and Beyond came along. And then, maybe even sort of technologies further upstream, whether that's sort of seed genomics or simply traceability, food waste valorization, obviously to reduce a lot of the supply chain inefficiencies that we see. So that's where we play, sort of seed to Series A type private capital, early stage venture. And, to answer your question in terms of the importance of what we're trying to do here is really just create awareness, both in terms of the need to be investing in this particular industry. As you said, agriculture and food is such a critical aspect of both the global economy and really the industry upon which we all rely day to day for our daily sustenance. And yet, as recently as 10 years ago, this particular sector was receiving less than 1% of total global venture capital, which was otherwise going towards sort of more, established or glamorized industries such as fintech or e-commerce, et cetera, or consumer tech. And then sort of fast forward to 2015, ag and food was again only receiving about 3% of the total venture dollar. So what we're trying to do is create awareness, is to create noise about not just the need, but also the market opportunity, the investment opportunity in this space. And fortunately, through such watershed events as whether it was the Beyond IPO in 2019, and more recently a lot of the sort of public exit success stories that we've seen in the public markets, on both the ag and the food tech side, this really created newfound attention and participation from much broader pools of investment capital into this particular sector.
All right, thanks, John. I think that's quite a challenge that you put your guys involved in. I think between what Arindram has provided in terms of opportunities and yourself in terms of building the awareness, now we turn to Pak Sujatro. As you lead one of the largest conglomerate, I think, in Indonesia, Triputra Agro Persada. The journey towards sustainability must have been long and hard. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what are the sustainability measures that you have implemented and how have you incorporated them into your company? Over to you, Pak Sujatro. You're muted.
Sorry. So thank you, Evie. So before I explain about and sharing about our sustainability policy and also framework, I think it's Triputra Agro Persada since 1 month go to the public. So this is a oil palm and rubber and processing industry company. The company was founded in 2005, operating 25 oil palm plantation location in Central Kalimantan, and East Kalimantan, and we have also small area in Jambi. We have also 1 rubber plantations, 16 palm oil mills, and 1 ripe smoke seeds factory with 4 subsidiary branch office located in Jambi, Central Kalimantan, and also in East Kalimantan. So the company is committed always to producing the high quality of palm oil, and also now we have producing the palm kernel oil to meet the domestic and also the international demands market. So talking about the sustainability has become inherent part of TIPG business strategy in the additional to develop of human resource and also modern agro technology. It's just a journey which is started since inception on the company in 2005. We believe the natural resources-based agriculture business active must be in line with the effort protect the environments, improve the quality of life of the community, particular those who live around the concession area. With this belief, the company has developed a sustainability policy that will serve as a timeless guidance in the carrying on the company overall activity. So I think this one and our missions, we know everybody here, the green plantation for better quality. Yes, we are striving to produce sustainability palm oil while providing positive benefit for all the stakeholders. And also mutuality formulate, carry out the various initiatives that inline the sustainability development goals or SDGs. These goals require the particular our party, TAPG, takes the part contribute to the achievement of the SDG target. Through our sustainability policy, we emphasize our strong community and support the implementation NDPA too. This is one of our sustainability policy. As a part of sustainability journey, TAPG commit toward carbon emission reduction and moving forward to the carbon neutrality. So I'm stopped here.
All right, thank you, Pastor Joe. I think the journey is there. You're putting it in within the company practices, right? So now switching the conversation a little bit here to private investment perspective, as both Arindram and John are. In your opinion, Arindram, which or what type of capital is the greatest necessity for the agriculture in Asia to adopt sustainable measures?
Thanks, Evie. A very, very critical question. Now, when you look at the sustainability journey of large food and agri companies or the supply chain, including the upstream, which means the farmers who are actually doing all the job at the ground level, whenever we talk of sustainable practices or climate-friendly practices, it means that it's not business as usual, that all the players, including the farmers, they need to change their practices. And once they change their practices, the difficult part is it's new kind of business they will be doing. They'll be doing business in a different way. And the risks are not known to the financial services sector. And banks are extremely wary of new practices, of different practices. While they want to encourage it on one side, from a risk perspective, there is always a danger of financial institutions not understanding. So this is where blending of capital becomes extremely important. And this is where, non-commercial money and commercial money, whether the non-commercial money lying with the large foundations or with the government, they need to work with the private capital to enable unlocking of large private capital into the agriculture sector. And this is specifically important in Asia because Asia is dominated by smallholder farmers. And if we are trying to change practices at the smallholder farmers level, there's a lot of technical assistance and capacity building also which is required. That's where a lot of grant money, firstly for TA and capacity building, and secondly is to de-risk a lot of the private capital. That's critical. And that means collaboration between the development sector, the government, the local communities, and the financial services sector and the private sector. So collaboration to bring in different pools of capital with different risk appetite is extremely important in the to take the right kind of steps to address sustainability challenges in the agriculture sector.
All right. Thanks, Arindran. John, do you want to add to this in terms of capital? Where do you see this questions or conundrum we're in?
Yeah, no, I have to really just agree with Arindam's sentiments. Obviously, that blended financing and ultimately, whether it's through a sort of foundational approach or from a public sector sort of policy angle, I think we don't need to look very far, at least here in Singapore, just to see how effective the local government's approach towards shifting the food production narrative and the 30 by 30 goal, what's been established over the last couple of years in terms of revolutionizing the concept of a food industry here in Singapore. But it's obviously come with a lot of government support and sort of de-risking grants just to help a lot of these sort of early stage startups and novel technologies in VC parlance or whatever, get over that valley of death and just sort of reach that sort of next level of just commercialization to reach the market and start having that sort of sustainable growth traction or simply just sort of impact that it should be having if we're talking about novel technologies or even sort of novel production methodologies. I think just maybe taking a step back, there has been some really positive trends in terms of investment flow into the space. Again, reflecting from a position of early stage venture capital, I made mention of the fact that as recently as 2015, only 3% of the venture capital dollar was flowing into agri-food tech. As of last year's sort of full year 2020 numbers that we've crunched, there was approximately $26 billion flowing into the agri-food tech sector, which is about almost 3 times the amount that was flowing in 2015. So the awareness, the appeal, and the interest from new pools of capital, new investors is clearly sort of moving in the right direction. And part of this could very much, we imagine, be tied to this broader take-up of the sort of ESG thematic that public markets are really embracing. So it's all pointing in the right direction, I'm happy to say.
Okay.
Evie, if I may just add one point, sorry for interrupting, a very critical point, and the work that AgFunder is doing is technology. Now, if you look at the new developments in the AgTech, AgFintech, it's critical for the fight against climate, because it cuts down on transaction costs, it addresses the issue of risk cost, and overall, it's information asymmetry issues it addresses. So it's extremely important to have technology in place. That's a critical piece, a necessary piece in the climate fight.
Okay, I was coming to that, and I said in saying that the ESG as a framework sort of provides that sort of a de-risking bit, because it helps to address potential negative impact investment for the people as well as the planet. But I think what is critical is also that innovation to support this particular industry is quite critical, right? So probably to John, as this is very, in terms of technological and innovation, what role do you see the agri-funders can play in this? How much more can you sort of drive and push this industry forward?
I think, just to echo Arindam's point about, technology being the tool to unlock the potential. We cannot rely on the production systems or consumption patterns of the past 50 to 100 years if we're going to survive as a species into 2050, right? We've talked about population growth. You've mentioned the statistics around, the negative impact that the current or sort of status quo industry practices impact on the planet. And again, just within the Asia context, just the reality that projections that by 2030, half of the global population will reside in Asia, and yet we've only got 1/4 of the world's agricultural land, on which to sort of feed ourselves. We need to be doing something different. And again, to echo Arindam, that's where technology and innovation comes into play. And that's where I think, from an investment standpoint, there is enormous opportunity to be participating in the growth of this sector, both out of a sort of fundamental, sort of purposeful investment ideology, as well as clearly a sort of commercial opportunity, when you look at just the sort of the vast market opportunity that's going to be realized over the next 10 years.
Okay. So maybe then I can ask Pastor Tejo, as you are an agribusiness player, right, in the global arena, how do you see innovation and incorporating that within your company's operations? Is that a fundamental part of your move towards sustainability?
Yes. If we talking about our framework selves regarding the people, planet, and also prosperity. So all the things we cannot far away from the technology. So the technology that we have developed is the cornerstone of our operation excellence. I think that we need to combine everything, because the precision farming, intelligent mill, and also the lean enterprise coming together, and also how we have to maintain all the things, because if we're talking about the technology and the excellence of the technology or the excellence of operations, is not others as we talking about how we have to achieve our target in detail planning, in discipline from execution, and also robust control. So, before the speaker already talking about this, I'm agree. Using weather forecasts, as example, and satellite emergency, and also the tree health. Without the technology, I think it's very, very difficult right now. And also to discipline execution with the wider area for our works area. It's just using without the GPS or the sensor and everything, we cannot running the good executions, and also the controlling. So all the thing we input and we combine to our framework actually, and with this kind of the framework, we can overlapping all the things, and together with the people, and we showing the weather right now, and also the planet situations, and we can achieve our target and also our productions better than minimum is same as our target actually.
Well, that's good to hear, Pastor Tejo, that there are some, advances that you're putting in your sector and in your company, right? Okay, yeah. Thank you. So we've got questions from the members of this, and the first one we have actually is for Arindam. I think this is from Sophie from the European BPA. It's asking about the key role of foundations, especially for Rabobank and Rabo Foundation. I think there are 3 entities within Rabo for this: Rabo Foundation, Rabo Impact Fund, and Rabobank itself. So how are you collaborating between the teams with the sustainability team?
Wonderful. Now, sustainability is core to Rabobank. The mission of the bank is growing a better world together. So it's embedded there that we have to work together, and we have to work for a better world, which means a climate-friendly world. That's one. Now, all the units within Rabobank, there are many units. These are just 3 of them. Now, it's extremely important that, again, as I mentioned earlier, Rabobank, the Rabo Foundation has resources, which has the ability to take very high risk. Just to give you an example, in India, we are running India's first climate smart agriculture financing program, wherein Rabo Foundation has provided a first loss and USAID has provided a second loss pari passu loan to a couple of Indian financial institutions to finance climate smart projects and businesses. So Rabo Foundation works with like-minded organizations, either in the government or with other foundations or with the private sector, to enable unlocking of capital through blended finance instruments across the world, specifically in Indonesia and India in Asia. The Rabobank works with large corporates in Asia. And when it works with large corporates in Asia, the mandate is to work with the sustainable corporates, or to work or to fund them, have them as the clients, at the same time, walk with them in the sustainability journey by providing your networks and by providing solutions.
Okay. So we've got another one for you, Erin, from today. This is from GIZ or GIZ in India, based in India. They've got a project on blending financing for climate proofing of agriculture value chain. So what they have learned from their initial engagement with the stakeholders in their project is that there's a lot of private funds that are not flowing into the agriculture sector. This is especially in the Indian continent because lack of capacity of majority of farmers and producer companies to meet the compliance standards of these funding institutions. So they would. So the question is to you: what do you think should be the approach to parallelly develop capacity and mobilize funds, so as not to lose out on the adaptation opportunities?
So two things. It requires a 20 minutes answer, so I'll put it in 1 minute. There are issues on both sides. One is on the supply side, that supply of finance. Yes, most of the mainstream financial institutions across Asia, they are unhappy with lending to the agriculture sector. They think it's very high risk, which it is, and they don't wish to invest enough to be able to do financing across the supply chain, whether it's a farmer level or it's at the farmer cooperatives or in the supply chain level. They are happy only working with large corporates. So there is an issue, and a lot of education, a lot of training needs to be done at the banks level also. That's one. Having said that, in the Indian context, in the Asian context, we do see a large number of development projects at the grassroots level which claim to be climate smart and which are climate smart. But having said that, they don't pay enough attention to the bankability aspects of what makes these projects viable, sustainable, and bankable. That's critical. So for all the NGOs and development sector players who are working with large bodies of farmers or farmer organizations, they need to understand the banking perspective of what needs to be done to make them bankable from a credit and non-credit perspective. That's one big lacune, not only in India, but across Asia. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John. So I've got a question here for John. It's from Ruth, from venture capital investing in innovative technologies. Ruth would like to know if there are some examples of projects that you carry out in the region.
Thanks, Ruth. Yeah, I guess, in terms of projects, it would be deals and investment opportunities. Just off the top of my head, we're in the middle of a cohort right now where we've got 10 companies from around the world, which we put through our Grow Accelerator program. The idea is that all of these companies are looking to gain a foothold here in Asia. And I'm happy to report that actually a number of the companies are already sort of established in one market or another, looking to sort of internationalize and expand throughout the region. So in terms of the technology companies that we'd be looking at, one example would be Mayani from the Philippines. They're an agri-e-commerce platform, essentially sort of a farm to fork solution, looking to transform and revolutionize the centuries-old fragmented supply chain that exists not just in the Philippines but across most emerging markets. And obviously, what I think the strength that the Mayani team is able to do is really how they approach partnerships, how they connect with both smallholder farmers on the ground, but then link them to whether it's the sort of large retail distributors, or even one recent example that was shared with us, being the sort of supply chain partner for the BTS army in the Philippines, whereby, for every sort of dollar donated, they're trying to, don't distribute food around the archipelago, and Mayani has come in as that sort of supply chain partner. Other examples would be a company called S4S, or Science for Society, out of India, who's doing a sort of similar supply chain focused model, whereby they enable smallholder farmers, in this case specifically targeting female agripreneurs, and equip them with a pretty rudimentary sort of dehydration technology or system, which allows them to reduce both the sort of post-harvest food waste before it enters the supply chain, but also increase the value of this crop that they're growing in their communities before then aggregating it and selling it on to the either the retailer or the B2B company who's procuring it. Other examples would be, Indonesia's fastest growing plant-based meat startup called Green Rebel, again targeting the enormous opportunity in the sort of the growth of the consumer and the middle class market in Southeast Asia, and bringing to market a product which is designed by locals for locals, with that flavor profile, with the form function. We're talking about satays and rendangs and stuff. So something which is immediately recognizable by the local consumer, and in effect, they're thereby allowing the burgeoning sort of Southeast Asia middle class to adopt a more healthier, environmentally friendly lifestyle.
All right, thanks, John. So to Pak Sutejo, there is a question for you. Why should companies prioritize incorporating sustainability into their businesses? Do you see yourself as first movers in this space? What should be the role of the larger agribusiness sector? And this is from Pak Rama Hidayat.
Yes, thank you. So we know the sustainability is our journey and also our commitments. So since we have the starting the business, our founder is talking about the business must be balanced between the people and also environment and also our surroundings. And we need to see the sustainability is one of our pillars, because without sustainability, the future is just very difficult for us and also for the business selves. So that's why we work with some organizations, even with the NGO and also with the University in Indonesia, and how we have to our program to running is example with the Chamber of Commerce industry. We very active, invite the member to participate and help the farmer, fishermen, and also the small trader. And also we organize food security summit. And with the Peace Agro selves, how we have to align our visions and our missions to increase minimum 20% for the farmer, the productivity, and also 20% for the welfare, and also 20% reduction for CO2. And all the thing is just the balance process for the business. If you see the business and in the agro will be grow, you have to balancing between the planet and also the people and also the prosperity. I think this one is what's going on in our company, Evie.
Okay, thank you, Pak Sutejo. So I think there is a question here is also on regards to policy issues, like how do we address the larger compulsions of crop diversification in politics and economics as we're feeding the population? We are seeing that progress under this has been slow, and there are different stakeholders working at this. So do you have any comments on this to either Arindram, John, or Pak Sutejo?
Well, if I may start, yes, it's a political issue in Asia. Having said that, I think if you look at the risk that Asia faces from a water perspective, forget about the other climate risk, we simply don't have a choice. So, from a policy perspective, changing the way, cropping is done today it'll be cheaper to have a solution today than to wait for the disaster to happen, because it's going to have huge political, economic, social consequences. We do see that the intention is there, but since it becomes political, governments and policymakers shy away from taking hard steps. But the green shoots are because of the targets that every country in Asia has set, including in the agriculture sector, to decrease their carbon footprints. We are seeing a welcome change so far as policy making and regulators' perspective in this sector. Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to add to this, John? It's okay if not.
Dorinda covered it very well.
Okay. So next one, we have a kind of question here that, looking at our region is undergoing monumental changes, including a growing middle class and the need that we need to adapt to climate change. What do sustainable practices in the agriculture sector look like in the short term? And how different would they be in the long term? So I think this is something to ponder on. Maybe I can ask Arindra.
Sorry. What we will see is increased disclosure. I don't know whether I'm directly answering the question, because the consumers are getting more and more demanding. If you look at the youth, even in Asia, the middle class, the upper middle class, they are getting extremely demanding so far as food is concerned, not only in terms of nutrition, but also in terms of sustainability. So, so it's consumers, along with the regulators and the capital providers, we have to play a key role in seeing the changes. And more disclosures are required, which will bring in transparency, which will bring in other kind of transparent aspects in the supply chain with traceability and all of that. It is going to be the consumers who are going to demand different kind of way that food is produced, processed, transported, and delivered to their doorsteps.
Okay.
I'll just chime in there. Absolutely, consumers, and we've already seen that in these, as I mentioned, new food sectors, whether it's better for you, whether it's plant-based, whether it's fortified, etc. But also, I guess, the asset owners and the capital providers. The ESG wave, I feel, is only starting to reach our shores here in Asia. It's already well established, as you mentioned in your introductory comments, Ivy, in the US and in Europe in particular. There's an increasing shift right across that spectrum of investors, whether you're public market or sort of early stage private venture capital, to be adopting that more sort of conscious allocation of capital requirement, whether that's through the sort of ESG lens of sort of screening and selection, or perhaps in our space, more of a proactive identification of companies which are creating more sort of that tangible impact. And to borrow a term from Pak Suchedra, the better for place and people and ultimately prosperity. So that's something that we're looking to adopt, and we've seen an increase in these sort of impact funds popping up in the region, who are being more ultimately conscious in how they allocate capital and who they're investing into.
Thanks, John. I think it's true that disclosure will become the next sort of normal thing that you have to do as a business entity, not just doing downstream, but also upstream as well, right? So then that leads to another question we have here, probably is looking at, as an agribusiness, this is for Pak Sutejo, as you are an agribusiness working in this sector, do you see carbon offsets or offsetting your carbon footprint as something that you want to do? Do you see this as a potential for you to trade for carbon?
Yes. Before I answer this one, alignment to the last question. This is actually in Indonesia is good thing now. No privilege for people in which level. So people is talking. If you running the business is talking also an alignment to the sustainability, and especially the government is very commitment to the carbons and also to the emissions. Especially if I'm sharing to what's happened in 2015 as the fire happened in Indonesia. So impacted to all the level of people. So what be the company running now with the policy to implementation, no deforestation, no planting on pit and no exploitation. This is true and must be we have to do. And back to your question is, if we understand about all the things, so we need to commit it and also to doing all the things to be better for the world actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Pak Sutejo. You know, it's been a very interesting session this afternoon. You know, we've got a lot of questions coming up, but I'm just conscious of the time. So I would like to have our three panelists think of, you know, one of their key takeaway from this session for the agriculture sector. But I'd just like to emphasize that, you know, sustainable agriculture is needed to help ensure food security, quantity, quality, and its safety. So in many parts of the world, it is a driver for economic growth and it aids the reduction of poverty, right? So sustainable agriculture practices will mitigate environmental, ecological, and social pressures exerted on by the agriculture system as a whole, but it also ensures reliability, economic viability, and sustainability of our future resources. So, you know, in terms of looking at carbon trading or carbon offset, that could potentially be, I guess. But as we looked into this, then probably maybe Arindram, you could share with us one of your takeaways for the session.
Well, the key takeaway is SDG 17. That's partnership and collaboration, because no single player, no single sector can solve the problem. The problem is so big, it's so complicated. You need governments, private sector, providers of capital, the development sector, and the community at large to work together. That's absolutely key. So unless we can do that efficiently, we are not going to solve the problem.
I think we've lost Ivy, but John, can I then direct this question to you as well?
Sure thing, Prachi. Yeah, I think just to sort of build on Arindam's point, you know, ultimately we need to ask ourselves as individuals, you know, what is the role that we can play, and whether that's, you know, from a consumption habit change or perhaps more relevant to this audience is as investors and asset allocators. You know, what are the sectors that we can be supporting and supporting, you know, innovation and transformation, obviously recognizing that the interplay between food and ag is so connected to these questions and challenges around sort of sustainability and climate change. You know, how can we be investing our capital to be supporting and advancing more positive advances in this space?
All right, thank you. So, Pak Sutejo, your one takeaway.
Yes, sustainability is not one-day work for us, and requires a shared commitment as well as the clear roadmaps. So how emphasis on us doing the right business and behaving the right way.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a lot of action for us to take away. But I do echo what Arindram, John, and yourself have said. Collaboration is necessary to really establish the understanding of what ESG is and its adoption across this agriculture sector and across the Asia-Pacific region. I think you all agree with me. I think we need to turn ESGs as from a fleeting trend to a tangible reality. All right. So now with that, I would like to thank all the panelists for being with us, and also the participants of this for this interesting and also, I think, lively discussion on my part. And it was a great honor for me to have a chance to really, pick up the conversation with these three experts. So big thank you to all. Sorry that I can't sort of put up all the questions that was raised. So handing it over now to Prachi.
Thank you. A big thank you to all the participants, and thank you for your patience for sticking with us. Despite the technical difficulties, I'd like to thank all our panelists. It was a very, very interesting conversation. We always get to learn so much. So thank you, John. Thank you, Arindam. Thank you, Pak Sucheto and Ivy. You were a fantastic host. We'll end it here now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep safe.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Ivy.